Glass shattered across the polished floor as the brick sailed through the storefront window. The sound reverberated through Harmony Market like a gunshot, followed immediately by the piercing wail of security alarms. Aden Ibrahim froze behind the register, his eyes widening as dozens of faces contorted with rage pressed against the remaining windows. The crowd outside had transformed from curious onlookers to a seething mob in less than 20 minutes. "Get out, poisoners!" Someone screamed from beyond the broken glass. Another projectile, a bottle smashed against the doorframe, liquid splashing across the entrance. The air grew thick with tension as customers inside dropped their shopping baskets, panic spreading like wildfire across their faces. A young mother clutched her child to her chest and backed toward the rear exit. Aiden's sister, Samira, rushed from the back office, her phone pressed to her ear. "Police are on their way," she shouted over the growing chaos. "Everyone please move toward the back storage area." Her voice carried the practiced calm of someone trying desperately not to betray their fear. But it was already too late. The front doors burst open as the electronic lock gave way under the pressure of dozens of bodies. The mob poured into Harmony Market like a vengeful tide. Aiden watched in horror as hands grabbed products from shelves, smashing jars of imported spices and hurling produce to the ground. The gleaming floors his family had polished that very morning were now slick with olive oil, yogurt, and shattered dreams. "Please," he begged, raising his hands in a universal gesture of surrender. "There's been a misunderstanding." His words were drowned by the cacophony of destruction. From the corner of his eye, Aiden glimpsed a familiar face at the edge of the crowd, Sandra Wilson, their neighbor from 3 doors down, recording everything on her phone with an expression that hovered between shock and something that looked disturbingly like satisfaction. As police sirens wailed in the distance, Aiden could only wonder how the proudest accomplishment of his family's life had turned into a nightmare in just one ordinary Tuesday afternoon. 6 months earlier, the vacant storefront on Maple Avenue had been nothing but a hollow shell of unrealized potential. The previous grocery chain had abandoned it during the economic downturn, leaving the downtown area without a proper food market for nearly 2 years. Where others saw an insurmountable challenge, the Ibrahim family recognized opportunity. Aden Ibrahim stood beside his parents and sister on the day they first toured the empty space, their footsteps echoing against bare concrete floors and exposed ceiling beams. At 42, Abdullahi Ibrahim had the calloused hands of a man who had never shied away from hard work. He ran his palm appreciatively along the dusty counter space. "What do you think?" he asked, his Somali accent still strong despite the 20 years since he'd arrived in America. "Is this not the perfect place to build our dream?" Aden's mother, Honey, adjusted her hijab and gazed thoughtfully at the broad windows that face the street. "It has good light. People walking by will see what we offer." Her practical mind was already calculating shelf placements and refrigeration needs. "The rent is steep," Samira pointed out. At 28, she was the pragmatist of the family, with an MBA that had helped secure their business loan. "But the location can't be beat. Downtown is changing, young professionals moving in, city investment in renovation. The timing is right." Aiden, just 24 and still finishing his undergraduate degree in business management, felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation as he envisioned the empty space transformed. "We could be more than just another grocery store," he suggested. "We could showcase foods from around the world, not just Somalia, but across Africa, the Middle East, Asia, a true international market." "Harmony Market," his father said suddenly, the name coming to him like inspiration. "A place where all tastes and traditions are welcome." The name had stuck, and, Over the next 3 months, the family poured everything they had into bringing Harmony Market to life. They had saved for nearly 15 years, squirreling away profits from the small convenience store they'd operated in a neighboring city. Every member of the extended Ibrahim clan contributed what they could. Cousins helped install shelving. Uncles painted walls. Aunties tested recipes for the small cafe section that would occupy one corner. The grand opening had exceeded their wildest expectations. The mayor cut the ceremonial ribbon. Local news stations covered the story of immigrant success, and customers flooded in, delighted to discover grocery options beyond the standard supermarket fare. Harmony Market filled a void in the community that no one had fully recognized until it was addressed access to authentic, diverse food products that reflected the increasingly international character of the city itself. Within 3 months, Harmony Market had established itself as a downtown fixture. Regular customers knew the Ibrahims by name. Aiden took particular pride in the cooking demonstrations they hosted on weekends, where community members shared techniques from their cultural traditions. The store had become exactly what they'd hoped, not just a business, but a gathering place that celebrated diversity through the universal language of food. "You've really made something special here," commented Detective Marcus Rodriguez, a regular who stopped in for lunch at least twice a week. He was particularly fond of the sambusas Hani prepared fresh each morning. This neighborhood needed this more than people realized. But success, especially visible success, has a way of attracting attention, not all of it welcome. Sandra Wilson had lived in her Victorian-style home on Maple Avenue for over 30 years, watching the neighborhood evolve around her. She'd invested in the property when downtown was still affordable, riding out the rough years of urban decay and waiting for gentrification to boost her home's value. At 59, with carefully maintained blonde highlights and a wardrobe of designer casual wear that suggested comfortable retirement, Sandra was a fixture in the local homeowners association and prided herself on keeping standards high in the neighborhood. The first time she entered Harmony Market, her nose wrinkled slightly at the unfamiliar spice aromas. She wandered the aisles with a shopping basket over her arm, picking up items and returning them to shelves with small sounds of disapproval. "Can I help you find something specific?" Samira had asked, approaching with a professional smile. Sandra's eyes narrowed fractionally. "Just looking. I'm surprised they approved this type of ethnic store for this location. The previous tenant was going to be a Williams and Grove specialty market before financing fell through." Samira's smile never faltered. "We're actually carrying quite a few local and organic products alongside our international selections. Is there a particular item you're looking for?" "I doubt you'd have my brands," Sandra replied, setting down her empty basket. "I'll just stick with delivery from Franklin's across town." As she left, Samira noticed Sandra pausing outside to take photos of the store's facade and signage. At the time, it had seemed merely odd, not ominous. The first real sign of trouble came 3 weeks later, when Sandra appeared at a city council meeting during the public comment period. Aiden was there to request approval for outdoor seating for their cafe section. "I'm concerned about the changes to our neighborhood's character," Sandra stated, her voice carrying the practiced cadence of someone accustomed to being heard. "The smells coming from that new foreign market are overwhelming on hot days. And the increased foot traffic is bringing all sorts of people into our historic district. People who don't necessarily share our community values." The council president had gently reminded Sandra that public comments should address specific agenda items, not general complaints. But the message was clear. Sandra Wilson was not pleased with Harmony Market's success, and she wasn't afraid to say so. Aiden had brushed it off at the time. Every business faced some opposition, And one unhappy neighbor wouldn't derail what they were building. He couldn't have known then how dangerously far Sandra's displeasure would eventually reach. The confrontation that set everything in motion happened on a Tuesday afternoon in late July. The summer heat had driven downtown foot traffic indoors, and Harmony Market was enjoying a steady stream of customers seeking air conditioning along with their groceries. Sandra Wilson entered just after 2 p.m., her face already set in lines of displeasure. She moved directly to the prepared food section where Hani was arranging a fresh tray of baklava in the display case. Without preamble, Sandra thrust her phone forward, displaying a social media post. "Would you care to explain this?" she demanded, her voice pitched to Carrie. Several nearby customers glanced over curiously. Hani straightened, wiping her hands on her apron. "Explain what, ma'am?" "This review. This person claims they got sick after eating food from your store. Severe stomach cramps, vomiting. They had to go to the emergency room." Sandra's voice rose with each word. "Did you know about this? Are you investigating? Or do you just not care about food safety standards in this country?" Aiden, hearing the commotion from the register, quickly moved to intervene. "Ms. Wilson, if someone had a complaint about our products, they should contact us directly. We take food safety extremely seriously. Can I see the post you're referring to?" Sandra pulled her phone back possessively. "You should be monitoring these things yourself. This person says the spices you're importing aren't properly inspected. Who knows what's in them? And your mother here is handling food without gloves." Hani's eyes widened at the accusation. "I only arranged the display. I wore gloves when preparing food, as required." "The health department should be investigating you people," Sandra continued, her volume increasing. "I've been doing research on food imported from certain countries. The standards are nothing like ours. Nothing. Who knows what contaminants you're bringing in?" By now, a small crowd had gathered, watching the confrontation with uncomfortable expressions. Auden maintained his professional demeanor with effort. "Mrs. Wilson, all our imported products meet FDA requirements, and we source from approved distributors. Our store has passed every health inspection with excellent ratings. If you have specific concerns, I'm happy to address them privately in our office." "So you can cover things up," Sandra scoffed. "I've seen how these businesses operate, cutting corners, ignoring regulations because no one's checking closely enough. Well, I'm checking, and I'm not the only one concerned." A younger customer in line, a woman with a toddler on her hip, stepped forward unexpectedly. "I shop here twice a week, and everything's always fresh and wonderful. My daughter loves their homemade yogurt. Never had a single problem." Sandra turned to her with narrowed eyes. "Wait until you do. Some of these foreign spices have been linked to all kinds of health issues. I've been researching online." "Ms. Wilson," Aiden said firmly, "you're disturbing our customers with unfounded allegations. If you have legitimate concerns, please share the specific post, and we'll investigate. Otherwise, I have to ask you to leave." "You're asking me to leave?" Sandra's voice rose to a near shriek. "I've lived in this neighborhood for 30 years. You people show up, and suddenly, I'm not welcome in a store on my own street." The uncomfortable silence that followed was broken by Samira, arriving from the back office. "Is there a problem here?" "Your brother is threatening me," Sandra declared, clutching her purse tighter. "Simply for asking reasonable health and safety questions that any consumer has a right to ask." "No one is threatening you," Samira replied calmly. "But you are causing a disturbance. If you have specific food safety concerns, you can email them to our customer service address, or contact the health department directly. They have all our inspection records." Oh, I will. I'll be contacting everyone health department, immigration, Homeland Security. Someone needs to look into what's really happening in this place. Sandra turned dramatically, addressing the other customers. I'd think twice before buying anything here. Folks, you don't know what's really in it. With that parting shot, she stormed out, nearly colliding with a customer entering the store. The awkward silence that followed was broken by the same young mother who had spoken up. Well, that was something, she said with a forced laugh. For what it's worth, my husband's a gastroenterologist, and he thinks your food is fantastic. Some people just can't handle change. Aidan thanked her sincerely, then turned to the waiting customers. I apologize for that disruption. Please let us know if you have any questions about our products or sourcing. The incident seemed to dissipate as quickly as it had erupted. Business resumed its normal pace, and by closing time, Aidan had nearly dismissed the confrontation as just another unpleasant interaction with a difficult customer. What he didn't know was that Sandra had left Harmony Market and immediately called 911. I need to report a public health emergency, she told the dispatcher, her voice trembling with manufactured urgency. There's a market on Maple Avenue, Harmony Market. They're selling contaminated food. People are getting sick. I saw it with my own eyes. They're using strange chemicals in their foreign foods, and the owners threatened me when I asked questions. I think they're deliberately poisoning Americans. The dispatcher, following protocol for all reports, took the information and assured Sandra that appropriate authorities would be notified. What Sandra failed to understand was that her call would be recorded, logged, and later serve as evidence of the chain of events she was about to set in motion. Not content with the 911 call, Sandra returned home and immediately logged onto her various social media accounts. Her hands shook with adrenaline as she crafted her first post. Urgent health warning to all my local friends. The new foreign market downtown Harmony is selling contaminated products. Multiple people sick. One hospitalized. They threatened me when I asked questions. Health dept needs to shut them down before someone dies. These people don't follow American health standards. Share to save lives. She attached photos she had surreptitiously taken inside the store weeks earlier, zoomed in on spice bins with their foreign language labels. Then, she shared the post to every local community group and page she belonged to: Neighborhood Watch, Community Board, Parents Groups, and her own considerable network of followers who knew her as a vocal neighborhood advocate. By midnight, her post had been shared over 300 times. The Ibrahim family learned about the social media firestorm the following morning when Samira's phone began buzzing incessantly with notifications. Friends and regular customers were sending screenshots of Sandra's post, which had metastasized overnight into increasingly alarming versions. Some now claimed multiple hospitalizations. Others suggested intentional contamination. A few of the most extreme variants implied terrorist connections and plots to harm Americans. This is insane, Samira said, scrolling through message after message. She's actually telling people we're poisoning our customers. That's not just a lie, it's defamation. Aidan was already on the phone with their family lawyer, who advised them to document everything and prepare for a potential defamation lawsuit. We need to respond publicly, he told his family after hanging up. Calmly, professionally, with facts. They crafted a statement reaffirming their food safety practices, listing their perfect health inspection record, and inviting any concerned customers to visit and see their kitchen operations firsthand. Samira posted it to their business page and sent it to local news outlets that had begun inquiring about the viral allegations. But the damage was spreading faster than their measured response could contain it. By the time they arrived at Harmony Market to open for the day, 2 local news vans were parked outside, and a health department inspector was waiting at the door. "This is just procedural," the inspector assured them, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "We're required to investigate any food safety complaint, no matter the source. I know you guys run a clean operation, but I have to do a full inspection today." Abdullahi welcomed the inspection, confident in their practices. While the health official methodically worked through the store, Aden faced the reporters outside. "We categorically deny any food safety issues at Harmony Market," he stated firmly into the cameras. "These allegations are completely fabricated by an individual with a history of making discriminatory comments about our business. We welcome the health department's inspection today, as we have nothing to hide." "Are you suggesting this is racially motivated?" a reporter asked, thrusting a microphone closer. Aden chose his words carefully. "I'm suggesting that unfounded accusations should be treated with skepticism, especially when they target immigrant-owned businesses that are new to a neighborhood. Our store has become a community gathering place, and we're proud of the diverse clientele we serve." Inside, the health inspector was finding nothing amiss, in fact. He commented that Harmony Market standards exceeded requirements in several areas. But while the official inspection was going well, the situation outside was deteriorating. A small group of protesters had gathered across the street, several holding hastily made signs with slogans like "Food Safety First" and "Americans Before Profits." Aden recognized none of them as store customers. Most looked to be around Sandra's age, and he spotted her at the center of the group, directing their positioning for maximum visibility to passing traffic and news cameras. By noon, a countergroup had formed regular customers and community supporters who had seen the Ibrahim family's statement online and come to stand in solidarity. They entered the store to make purchases, several posting social media photos of themselves enjoying Harmony Market's prepared foods, with hashtags like "I Stand with Harmony" and "Truth Over Fear." The health inspector completed his work, finding no violations, and left with an apology for the disruption. "Someone clearly has an agenda," he muttered to Abdullahi. "But your records are cleaner than most restaurants downtown." For a few hours, it seemed the crisis might be resolving itself. The news vans eventually departed, and customer support appeared to be drowning out the negative voices online. But Sandra was not finished. Unable to leverage official channels after the health inspection yielded nothing, she escalated her campaign. That evening, Sandra created an anonymous account and posted what she claimed was a lab analysis of spices purchased from Harmony Market. The crudely photoshopped document listed alarming levels of lead, mercury, and unknown chemical compounds, supposedly found in the samples. Though clumsy and obviously fake to anyone with scientific knowledge, the post ignited fresh outrage among those already inclined to believe the worst. Next, she began calling suppliers listed on Harmony Market's product packaging, claiming to be a health department official investigating contamination. Several smaller vendors, alarmed by these calls, temporarily suspended deliveries pending clarification, leaving the market with noticeable gaps on shelves that further fueled speculation about product safety. The situation took an even darker turn when anonymous phone calls began targeting the Ibrahim family directly. The first came just after closing time, as Hani was reconciling the day's receipts. "We know what you're doing to our food," a distorted voice threatened before hanging up. Similar calls continued through the evening, sometimes silent, sometimes containing explicit threats or racial slurs. Samira insisted on filing a police report, but when officers responded, their reaction was frustratingly passive. "Not much we can do about anonymous calls," one explained with a shrug. "Could be kids pranking you because of all the social media attention. Just keep a log of when they happen. That night, the family gathered around their dining table at home, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. Business had been significantly lower that day, and several regular customers had texted apologies for staying away, explaining they wanted to support the market, but were concerned about the increasingly hostile atmosphere surrounding it. Perhaps this will blow over, Abdullahi suggested without much conviction. Truth must eventually prevail. Not without a fight, Samira countered, her expression determined. We need to be more aggressive in our response. We should hire a crisis management firm. With what money? Aden asked. We've put everything into the store. If business stays down like today, we'll be dipping into our emergency funds just to make next month's rent. Hani, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke. We did not come to this country and work this hard to surrender to lies and fear. Tomorrow we open as usual, with our heads high. Our customers know the truth. The rest will learn. None of them slept well that night, and when Abdullahi went to open the store the following morning, he found the front windows covered in bright red spray paint, poisoners, in jagged, dripping letters across the glass. The police responded quickly this time, taking photographs and dusting for fingerprints, though they held out little hope of identifying the vandals. A community-minded glass company offered to replace the damaged windows at cost, touched by the family's plight. Customers and neighbors showed up with cleaning supplies, helping to remove the spray paint from areas that could be salvaged. The solidarity was heartwarming, but the atmosphere had fundamentally changed. Where Harmony Market had once been a place of community and connection, it now sat at the center of a widening cultural rift in the town. People took sides. Friendships fractured over differing perceptions of the situation. And through it all, Sandra Wilson continued her campaign, creating new accounts whenever social platforms removed her posts for policy violations. She began appearing regularly on a local conservative podcast, positioning herself as a concerned citizen, being silenced by political correctness for asking reasonable questions about foreign business practices. The podcast appearances amplified her message beyond the local community, drawing attention from national fringe groups and conspiracy theorists who seized upon the narrative of immigrants threatening American safety. What had begun as one woman's personal vendetta was transforming into something far more dangerous, a symbol onto which broader societal tensions and fears could be projected. 5 days after the initial confrontation, with business at Harmony Market down nearly 60%, the situation reached a breaking point. A small but vocal group had begun a physical blockade of the store entrance, holding signs warning potential customers away and photographing anyone who entered. The police, citing freedom of speech, refused to disperse them as long as they remained on public sidewalks and didn't physically prevent access. That afternoon, Detective Rodriguez, the regular customer who enjoyed Hani's sambusas, stopped by in plainclothes during his lunch break. He navigated past the protesters with a hard stare that discouraged any direct confrontation. "This is getting out of hand," he told Aiden quietly at the nearly empty cafe counter. "I've been pushing the department to take these threats more seriously. But frankly, there's resistance from some quarters. The captain doesn't want to be seen taking sides in what he's calling a community dispute." "A dispute," Auden repeated incredulously. "We're being systematically targeted with lies that are destroying our business. How is defending ourselves against completely fabricated health accusations taking sides?" Rodriguez sighed. "I know. But here's something you should know. We've been monitoring some online forums where this story is being discussed. And there's increasingly violent rhetoric. Specific threats. I'm technically not supposed to tell you this, but as a friendly warning, you might want to consider temporarily closing just until we can get a handle on the security situation. The suggestion hit Auden like a physical blow. Close. That's exactly what they want. If we close now, even temporarily, the rumors win. People will assume there really was something wrong with our food. Better a damaged reputation than damaged people, Rodriguez replied grimly. Some of these online threats are specific. Auden, times, methods. I'm trying to get approval for additional patrols, but department resources are stretched thin. Before Aiden could respond, the front door chime sounded as Samira burst in, her face pale. "You need to see this," she said, holding out her phone. "It's everywhere now." The screen showed a breaking news chyron from a local station: health crisis, multiple hospitalization reports linked to downtown market. The accompanying article cited community sources, claiming at least 7 people had sought medical attention after consuming products from Harmony Market. Rodriguez took the phone, scanning the article with increasing alarm. "This is complete fiction. I would know if there were multiple hospitalizations related to your store. The department monitors all public health incidents." "Fiction doesn't matter anymore," Samira said bitterly. "The lie has gone mainstream." While the Ibrahim family and Detective Rodriguez were discussing the fabricated news report, a more troubling development was unfolding across town. A group chat titled "Community Protection" had been steadily growing over the past few days, reaching nearly 60 members, many using pseudonyms and profile pictures featuring American flags or patriotic symbols. Sandra Wilson wasn't officially an administrator of the group, but she was its most prolific contributor, sharing each new development in what the group had taken to calling the Harmony situation. That afternoon, she posted screenshots of the news report about alleged hospitalizations. "See, I've been saying this for days while everyone called me crazy. Now innocent Americans are in the hospital. How many have to get sick before authorities finally take action?" The responses flooded in, each more inflamed than the last. "Health department is probably too scared of being called racist to do their job. We need to protect ourselves if the government won't protect us. My cousin's friend got violently ill last week after eating their so-called organic produce. Couldn't keep anything down for 3 days." The last comment was particularly telling. Harmony Market had never claimed to sell organic produce, and their fresh food section had only opened 4 days prior. But facts had become irrelevant in the face of mounting collective outrage. A user with the handle Patriot Defender posted, "Enough talk. Meeting at Veterans Park at 5 p.m. to discuss next steps. Bring friends you trust. No phones." Sandra, sensing things might be escalating beyond her control, responded cautiously, "We need to stay within the law. I'm just advocating for proper health inspections." But her attempt to moderate the situation she had created came far too late. The momentum had shifted from online outrage to real-world mobilization, and she had lost any ability to direct it. At Harmony Market, the Ibrahim family had made the painful decision to close early for the day, sending their few remaining employees home with assurances that they would be paid for their full shifts. As they began the closing procedures, Auden noticed an unusual spike in vehicle traffic on their normally quiet streetcars, moving slowly past the store, passengers clearly observing the building and taking photos. Detective Rodriguez, who had stayed to help secure the premises, noticed it too. "I don't like this," he said, pulling out his phone. "I'm calling for a patrol car to keep an eye on the place tonight." By the time the family locked up and headed to their cars, the street had quieted again. Rodriguez waited until they had all driven away before leaving himself, an uneasiness settling in his stomach. In his 20 years on the force, He had developed an instinct for when trouble was brewing, and every sense was now telling him that the situation was about to escalate dramatically. He was right. At 8:47 p.m., the first 911 calls came in, reporting a disturbance at Harmony Market. Security footage would later show approximately 30 individuals, many with faces partially covered, converging on the store from multiple directions. The first brick through the window was thrown by a young man who had attended the Veterans Park meeting earlier, inflamed by stories of chemical additives and foreign contamination. The promised patrol car had been diverted to a multi-vehicle accident on the highway, leaving Harmony Market unprotected when the mob arrived. By the time police responded to the 911 calls, the damage was catastrophic. Windows shattered, inventory destroyed, shelving overturned, and crude graffiti sprayed across walls. The point-of-sale system had been smashed, and the cafe section was unrecognizable, with tables splintered and equipment destroyed. Most disturbing was what the vandals had left behind: dozens of printed flyers scattered throughout the wreckage, featuring a crudely designed skull and crossbones over the store's logo, and the words, "They poisoned our community," in bold red letters. The responding officers secured the scene and attempted to gather evidence, but most of the perpetrators had dispersed before police arrived. Only 3 were apprehended: young men in their early 20s who claimed they had just been watching and denied direct involvement despite the fresh paint on their hands. Detective Rodriguez was called from home to the scene, arriving to find Abdullahi and Aden standing silently amidst the destruction of their dream. The older man's shoulders were slumped in a way Rodriguez had never seen before, the dignified posture replaced by the curved spine of someone bearing an impossible weight. "I am so sorry," Rodriguez said, the words entirely inadequate for the devastation surrounding them. "We will find who did this." Aiden nodded numbly, still trying to process the extent of the damage. "Insurance," he began, then stopped, remembering their policy's limitations. They had basic coverage for vandalism, but nothing that would fully address this level of destruction. And even if they rebuilt, how could they ever feel safe here again? As crime scene technicians worked methodically through the store collecting evidence, a local news crew arrived, broadcasting live from outside the police perimeter. The reporter's voice carried clearly to where Aden stood. "We're live at Harmony Market, where a shocking scene of destruction has unfolded tonight. This store has been at the center of community controversy after allegations of food contamination surfaced last week, while police have not yet connected tonight's vandalism to those claims. Social media posts suggest vigilante action may have been taken by concerned citizens. We should note that health officials have not confirmed any actual cases of illness linked to products from this store." The careful phrasing, "not yet connected," "may have been," "not confirmed," maintained plausible deniability while implicitly linking the destruction to the false health claims. It was responsible journalism by technical standards, but it continued to lend credibility to Sandra Wilson's fabrications by treating them as matters of legitimate debate rather than manufactured falsehoods. As dawn broke over the ruined store, the Ibrahim family gathered with their lawyer to assess their options. The physical damage was overwhelming, but the damage to their reputation and to their sense of belonging in the community they had embraced cut far deeper. "We could rebuild," Samira said, her voice hollow. "Start over." Abdullahi shook his head slowly. "To what end? So they can destroy it again. So we can live in fear every day." "We can't let them win," Aden insisted, a spark of his usual determination flickering back to life. "This isn't just about us anymore. It's about whether lies can destroy something true and good. It's about whether hate gets the final word in our community." Their lawyer, a veteran civil rights attorney who had taken their case pro bono after hearing about the situation, cleared his throat. There's something else to consider. Multiple police reports have been filed. There's documented evidence of defamation, harassment, and now criminal destruction of property. You have grounds for significant civil action, not just against the direct perpetrators, but potentially against those who incited this violence through knowing disinformation. You mean Sandra Wilson, Hani said, speaking her name aloud for the first time. Yes, the lawyer confirmed. And potentially others. The digital evidence trail here is substantial. The conversation was interrupted by a knock at the back door of the damaged store. Detective Rodriguez entered, accompanied by a woman in a dark suit who introduced herself as Special Agent Diane Chen from the FBI's Civil Rights Division. We're treating this as a potential hate crime, she explained without preamble. The flyers, the targeted nature, the escalation pattern, it meets our criteria for federal investigation. The involvement of federal authorities changed everything. Where local police had been constrained by community politics and limited resources, the FBI brought sophisticated digital forensic capabilities and a mandate that transcended local pressures. Within hours, they had obtained warrants for social media records, message board data, and cell phone tower information covering the area around Harmony Market during the attack. What they uncovered was damning. The digital trail led directly back to Sandra Wilson. Her laptop contained draft versions of the false health report she had posted anonymously. Her search history revealed extensive research on how to create convincing fake documents and how to use VPNs to mask online activity. Most crucially, she had recorded and saved every interaction with the Ibrahim family, editing the footage to remove context and create misleading impressions of hostility and evasiveness. But the evidence revealed something even more disturbing than one woman's vendetta. Sandra had not been acting entirely alone. Email correspondence showed she had been in contact with a real estate developer who had previously attempted to purchase the building housing Harmony Market. The developer had plans to acquire the entire block for luxury condominiums, plans that became more difficult when the Ibrahim family signed a 10-year lease on the prime corner location. No direct evidence of conspiracy, Agent Chen explained to the family as the investigation progressed. But clear encouragement. The developer, Carlton Hayes, repeatedly told Ms. Wilson how helpful her community activism was, how it might solve both their problems. He provided her with talking points about property values and neighborhood character, while she kept him updated on her campaign against your store. While the FBI investigation continued, something unexpected began happening online. The tide of public opinion, which had been so easily manipulated against Harmony Market, began to turn. A local food blogger who had previously featured the store published a lengthy investigation into the false claims, meticulously debunking each allegation with documentation and expert interviews. University students organized a fundraiser to help with rebuilding costs. Former customers shared stories about what the market had meant to them. Even more powerfully, several people who had participated in the online pile-on came forward with public apologies, admitting they had shared inflammatory posts without verification because the content had aligned with their pre-existing biases. National media picked up the story, framing it as a cautionary tale about the real-world consequences of online disinformation and implicit bias. Overnight, Harmony Market transformed from a local controversy to a symbol of larger societal struggles with truth, prejudice, and the fragility of immigrant dreams in America. 10 days after the destruction of their store, the Ibrahim family held a press conference on the sidewalk outside the boarded-up building. News crews from across the country assembled to hear their statement. Abdullahi stepped to the microphones first, his dignified bearing restored despite the ordeal. 20 years ago, I came to this country with my wife, a small suitcase, and a large dream. He began, his voice steady. America welcomed us then, as it has welcomed millions before us. We worked hard, obeyed laws, paid taxes, raised our children to love this country as we do. When we opened Harmony Market, it was to share the best of our heritage while embracing the community we call home. He paused, looking directly into the cameras. What happened here was not America. The lies, the hatred, the destruction, these things are not what make this country great. What makes America great is what we have seen in the days since truth overcoming falsehood, compassion defeating fear, community rising from division. Samira spoke next, outlining their plans to rebuild not just the physical store, but their vision for what it represented. Harmony Market was never just about selling groceries. It was about creating connections across cultures through the universal language of food. That mission continues, stronger than before. When Aidan stepped forward, he held up a stack of papers. These are messages we've received since the attack, over 2,000 of them from across the country. People offering help, sharing stories of their own immigrant journeys, apologizing for the actions of those who tried to destroy us. This outpouring reminds us that for every voice spreading fear, there are many more speaking love. The family announced they would be filing a civil lawsuit against Sandra Wilson, Carlton Hayes, and several others identified in the FBI investigation as key instigators of the disinformation campaign and subsequent violence. But they also revealed something unexpected: plans for community healing sessions, where people from all perspectives could engage in facilitated dialogue about the events and their underlying causes. Breaking the cycle of fear requires more than punishment. Hani explained, speaking publicly for the first time. It requires understanding, not excusing, but understanding. Only then can we truly rebuild. The press conference concluded with the announcement of a reopening date, just 6 weeks away. Before they left the podium, Abdullahi made one final statement. We invite everyone to our grand reopening, especially those who doubted us. Come see for yourselves what Harmony Market truly is. Our door will be open to all. As the family prepared to step away from the microphones, a reporter called out one last question. What would you say to Sandra Wilson if she were here today? A heavy silence fell. The family exchanged glances, and it was Auden who finally responded. We would say that hatred is a poison that harms the one who carries it most of all. We hope that someday she finds peace. And we hope that our story helps others recognize the danger of allowing fear of difference to override our common humanity. Sandra Wilson was not there to hear these words. She was in custody, facing federal charges for inciting violence and civil rights violations. Her elegant Victorian home had been plastered with "for sale" signs. The day after her arrest, the legal fees for her defense, requiring immediate liquidation of assets. The real estate developer, Carlton Hayes, had also been charged as an accessory and faced additional allegations of corrupt business practices, as investigators uncovered a pattern of similar tactics used against other property owners who had refused his offers. The 3 young men apprehended at the scene of the destruction had accepted plea deals in exchange for testimony, their statements revealing how thoroughly they had been manipulated by false information and group pressure. Their required community service would include working directly with immigrant support organizations to understand the impact of their actions. In the weeks that followed, the story of Harmony Market continued to resonate nationally. It sparked difficult conversations about how easily disinformation spreads when it aligns with pre-existing prejudices. and how quickly online rhetoric can translate into real-world violence. Educators developed case studies based on the events. Social media platforms pointed to it when implementing new policies around verification of health-related claims. For the Ibrahim family, the process of rebuilding was both physical and emotional. Each board removed from the damaged storefront represented a step toward reclaiming their space. Each new fixture installed affirmed their refusal to be driven away. Community members volunteered weekends to help with reconstruction, and local businesses donated materials and services. The night before the reopening, Aden stood alone in the restored market, taking in the transformation. Where destruction had reigned, order and beauty had been restored, but with differences. The new layout included a community meeting space. The cafe had been expanded to encourage longer visits and conversation. Most notably, a wall near the entrance now featured a mosaic created by local artists, incorporating fragments of broken items recovered from the wreckage into a new design that told the story of destruction and renewal. "Finding beauty in brokenness," said Samira, joining her brother. "Dad's idea." "It's perfect," Aiden replied. "We're not pretending nothing happened. We're acknowledging it and growing from it." "Are you ready for tomorrow? The mayor's office says to expect at least 500 people for the ribbon cutting." Aden nodded. "More than ready. I want everyone to see what's possible when community chooses connection over division." The reopening of Harmony Market exceeded all expectations. People began lining up 2 hours before the scheduled opening. By the time Abdullahi cut the ribbon, the crowd stretched around the block. Customers, supporters, media, and even some who admitted they had initially believed the false rumors, but had come to see the truth for themselves. As the doors opened and people flooded in, filling the store with conversation and laughter, Detective Rodriguez found Aden near the expanded spice section. "Quite a turnout," he observed with a smile. "Though I'm still here partly on duty, making sure everything stays peaceful." "I don't think you need to worry," Aden replied, gesturing to the diverse crowd examining products, sampling foods, and engaging in animated conversation. "This is what we always envisioned, not just commerce, but community." Rodriguez nodded thoughtfully. "You know, in 20 years on the force, I've seen how quickly things can turn ugly when people give in to fear and suspicion. But I've rarely seen something this ugly transform into something so beautiful. You could have given up, moved away, started over somewhere else. No one would have blamed you. That would have confirmed every false narrative about us that we don't belong, that we're outsiders, that we have something to hide," Aden said. "Standing our ground wasn't just about business. It was about truth." In the months that followed, Harmony Market not only recovered, but thrived, becoming a destination that drew visitors from surrounding communities. The civil lawsuit was eventually settled for a substantial sum that the Ibrahim family largely dedicated to establishing a foundation supporting immigrant entrepreneurs and education about cultural diversity. Sandra Wilson was convicted on multiple charges and sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. The court-ordered psychiatric evaluation revealed a complex mix of personal grievances, economic anxieties, and deeply internalized prejudices that had fueled her campaign of destruction. As part of her sentence, she was required to participate in restorative justice programs designed to address the root causes of hate-motivated actions. 1 year after the reopening, Harmony Market hosted a community dinner in its expanded cafe space to mark the anniversary. The guest list included many who had stood by the family during their ordeal, but also several surprising additions, former protesters who had participated in the blockade, but had since undergone their own journeys of reflection and growth. As Abdullahi welcomed the assembled guests, he reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. In Somalia, there is a proverb, knowledge is light, and ignorance is darkness. What happened to our store began in darkness, the darkness of fear, of lies, of seeing others as enemies rather than neighbors. But look at the light that has emerged. He gestured around the thriving space, where people of diverse backgrounds shared meals and conversation. This light, the light of understanding, of community, of shared humanity, this light cannot be extinguished by hatred. In fact, sometimes it shines brightest after the darkest moments, when we remember what truly matters. As evening fell and the gathering continued, Auden stepped outside briefly for a moment of quiet reflection. The street that had once witnessed destruction was now peaceful, the storefront windows illuminated from within, casting a warm glow onto the sidewalk. Through the glass, he could see his family and community engaged in the simple, profound act of breaking bread, together the ultimate rejection of division, the most fundamental affirmation of shared humanity. From potential tragedy had emerged a powerful testimony that truth eventually prevails over falsehood, that community can overcome division, and that the American dream remains accessible to those with the courage to defend it. In a small corner of one American city, a family had stood their ground against hatred and emerged stronger, not just for themselves, but as a beacon for others facing similar challenges in a divided world. The story of Harmony Market would be told and retold in classrooms, community centers, and dining tables across the country, a cautionary tale about the dangers of disinformation and prejudice, but also an inspiring reminder of resilience and the enduring power of truth. In the end, harmony had indeed prevailed over discord, and a market had become much more than a place to buy groceries. It had become a symbol of America at its best, where differences enrich rather than divide, and where justice, however delayed, ultimately arrives.